Hashtag Impact invites you in to eavesdrop on raw and honest conversations on creating positive change in the world. I am your host, Regina Larco, and together with guests and hosts from around the globe, we encourage you to get curious about what making an impact means to you. Join the conversation and share your voice at hashtagimpact.com. Today, I sit down with Mabel Sieh. Mabel is many things, and mostly she's a dreamer. She's been a teacher, a communication specialist, and journalist before shifting her career to doing good. In the past, she led a local NGO serving youth, a corporate CSR team, and she is now assisting a local Hong Kong family to fulfill their philanthropic visions. Welcome to Hashtag Impact, Mabel.
Thank you. It's so good to see you again.
Yes, we have a history, don't we, Mabel? Do you want to tell?
It's a beautiful history.
Do you want to tell the listeners how we came across? Of course, beautiful Hong Kong brought us together.
Yeah. And those years were actually wonderful years where I met a lot of really nice people, including you. And we worked on some projects together.
Yeah.
And seeing your work and also following your work and be able to talk to you again today, to me, that was just a gift. I'm so happy to see you again.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It is really nice. And also, Mabel, thank you for reaching out, because I often feel that I know there are people listening to the podcast. I know there are people still connected with this beautiful body of work that keeps evolving and growing. But, sometimes you feel as a podcaster a little bit like you're speaking into the void. Yeah. And then when there is that beautiful email, that landed in my inbox and your name on it, and you shared so beautiful about and we can go all in detail about the beautiful community and impact work you are continuing to do. And I read that and I instantly thought like, oh my goodness, first of all, we have to get on a call. And then, of course, immediately, I think 1 minute into the conversation, I already said like, we have to get this on the record so that our listeners can also hear and learn about all the beautiful things that you've been experiencing in the last few years.
Experience is actually a good word. I think come to think about it, I think it's actually an experience that surprised myself more than anyone else. And I feel, like very different from when we met, what we both were doing. I think this time I feel something is actually happening to me. And it's a beautiful experience. And also it's once in a lifetime experience that I feel is the beginning of something. And of course, the beauty of whenever you feel or you say it's the beginning of something, because the beauty is that you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But that is the fun part, right? And that is also the part that you feel so grateful about. Life is many things, like you said. I think in my past experiences of doing many different kind of work, which I'm very grateful for, there's also an element in it. To me anyway, like what is next, and the excitement is, what do I feel I should do now? Which is a question that I feel, like every now and then we should ask ourselves. And I have been blessed with when I felt I could ask myself that, I also was given, just a lot of like unexpected, opportunities and really touching moments of things that I used to do before. And I feel that that's just gold, that's just something that you cannot plan. Really, you cannot plan. I don't know whether you felt that way, like when I was younger, I planned everything. Right. And I think it's actually a good learning experience as well. There's a lot of things that you want to happen in your life. And there's a lot of things that because you want to be responsible and accountable, that you also want to give yourself sort of that sort of responsibility, right? And you want to achieve something, you want to, arrive at some points in your career or in your life.
Mm.
But the older I get, like, please tell me you also feel that way. The older I get, the more I feel, like there's just so much you can plan, but there's so much more you can't plan. And that part of what you can't plan actually ends up being the most surprising and also the most rewarding experience.
Absolutely. It's it's humbling. I often feel like the things that are presented to us that we didn't plan for at all, that put our life on a different trajectory, and you just work with it. And I agree, like as a younger person, you feel that these are things that are in your hands, but the older you get, you realize they aren't at all, actually. And have a good plan, but then be ready to let go of it as well. I think that was often a really hard lesson that I had to learn, that when the things that I had planned for did not work out, there was a lot of grief for me around that, where I felt so defeated, that like, oh my goodness, I was like holding on to that land that I had, and it hindered me to actually develop. And so I'm happy to say I'm getting older as well, and I'm letting go of these plans and the expectations. And after our first call that we had like a couple of weeks ago, when you were like in a taxi through it was such a deep conversation, and I felt so happy for actually the taxi driver to even hear half of our conversation as well, because I thought it was so profound. But what it came to after that call, I wanted to, I knew there was this beautiful quote, and I couldn't quite place who said it. So I actually looked up who, I know it was like some famous person who must have said something about that, and I found it. So it's the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard who said, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. So, yeah, Mabel, I mean, what comes up for you when you hear me say that?
There's a lot of serendipity that happens. Sometimes, when we experience it, we think we experience it by chance. But actually, you think deeper, like nothing is actually by chance. But the chance is, like you feel you actually saw how it came about. And this is the whole experience that I had with Nepal, like how it came about. That has actually passed through more than 10 years of time. And with all the other experiences that I had, all the other careers that I experienced, I wouldn't be the person who actually put the thread through. But when I saw the moment, when I saw what they usually say, the catchphrase, the dot, then you just feel, oh my God, like this is actually one dot in my life that has spanned through 12 years' time. And also when you realized it's actually after 12, 13 years. And so when I'm sharing with my friends, of course, because of my excitement and also the learning that I had, with all these trips to Nepal, I start telling everybody that I know, and thank God that I don't know a lot of people, right? But it's the people who are really interested in my experiences, that I would, feel very comfortable sharing. And there's a lot of new friends that I, also met because I've changed fields, and the great minds and great friends that I've known after I changed to doing good, they've all been very supportive. Even one idea that you tell them, they would just say, tell me more about it, right? And this is actually how you spread all the good experiences and also share all the positivity in your life, which is contagious. So I was telling one friend, that the first few friends that I told them about, oh, you know what happened, and they were like, whenever I say that, they were like, you have to tell me what happened, right? And I was like, I was sitting next to someone. This is like previous job, right? Not even what I'm doing now. 2 years ago, when I was sitting, waiting for, like to go on stage to get a an award for the company or something like that. There was another woman sitting next to me, and then I guess, we were quite bored. The ceremony was just too long, and then we started talking.
Mm.
And we start talking, and of course, I would start talking to any strangers because of my, like previous journalistic background. So we started having a very nice conversation about, oh, what did you do? How did you actually end up doing this? And then I was telling her my experience. She was telling me her experience, and this is where I felt the chance came up. Of all the experiences that I had, because she was asking me about, when I was a journalist, like what kind of stories did I do? Of all the stories that I did, I don't know why I picked the stories that were so far away,
Mm.
so long ago, 12 years ago. I was actually doing an education story in Nepal.
In Nepal. Yeah.
In Nepal. That was the first time I was there. Like now, because I met this nice woman a year ago when we were at that ceremony. And now it's 13 years ago.
Mm.
And then I told her, like I went to Nepal with an NGO. At that time, it was a big NGO, and then it invited a lot of journalists to go with them to see their work, And then I reported on some of the works that they showed me by that moment. So I was just basically sitting in this ceremony next to this, like new friend, who also works in an NGO. So we would start talking about, the work that I reported on, and she told me the work that she's doing with her NGO in Hong Kong. And then that was the conversation, right? That was the conversation. And then before you knew it, like a week later or something, she sent me a WhatsApp saying to me that, oh, like we have a trip to Nepal. Yeah, because I think at the end of the conversation, I said to her, and also like I said to myself, like this is the magical moment. 12 years ago or 13 years ago, when I was up on that mountain talking to this girl, and then ended up doing a story about the education scene, I actually said to myself, nobody knew because I only said to myself, I have to come back.
Mm.
One day I will come back. But then there's no plan, right? There's no like, oh, I'm going to come back when. Although within those 10, 12 years, actually, some people have told me that, oh, I'm going to go to Nepal to trek. There's a lot of people go there to climb and then do their trek, a trekking journey. I have no plan of doing that. It's only until that day when I met this woman, I said to her, like, I'm going to go back, And then a week later, she told me, we have actually a charity hike. Do you want to join? So immediately I knew, something's going on. Yeah. So that was like the first time when I felt, oh my God, like I know, like actually I have the privilege to experience a lot of things coming back to my life in a very
Mm.
good and positive way. But I think this time I felt something bigger.
Mm.
So last year I went back, I joined the hike, I raised fund for the children in Nepal. And then I met the children that they organized for us to see a school, play with the students for the whole day. And then I also trekked on the beautiful Pun Hill, 3 days. Really tough, but really beautiful. I love climbing and hiking a lot. And then the whole time when I was hiking, I was telling myself, like, it's the second time I'm coming back. As I said I would. And I know, like things are actually happening or moving.
Mm.
And without thinking too much, right? You can't really think too much about these things. And also you have your day job, right? Like
Yeah.
like everybody says, I'm quite busy, like every
Yeah.
day doing my day job. And so I'm not actively thinking about, what should I do? I did pick up a number of things, after I came back, I picked up some volunteering and a lot of other things that I feel I could actually do. But then at the beginning of this year, one of the person who actually hiked with me, there's actually a group of volunteers, that this is something that I also like about NGO, who actually has a group of volunteers,
Mm.
really, really dedicated ordinary people from all walks of life. Like I got to know like 20 some people, some people, with different kinds of professions. And nobody actually asked about, like, what
You
are
do.
you doing or trying to show your name card, like this
How
is also the moment when
refreshing,
you feel,
right? How you
I
refreshing.
know.
You're not just a title.
And I was,
Yeah.
yes, and I was very adamant also during those trips, I don't say anything about myself. Like
Mm,
we were very just, we eat together, we play together, we help serve the students together, but
mm,
that's it.
mm,
The focus is about that.
mm,
And nobody is trying to say, like, show your qualification,
mm,
like, this is actually very common in Asia, right? So,
yeah.
like you said, it's very refreshing.
Mm,
I really enjoyed that trip. And it was a very pure,
mm,
and also driven. Everybody knew what they wanted to do, when they went there. But anyway, so one of the volunteers came to Hong Kong or passed by and said, "Hey, come out, and then we could have a conversation, have a drink." And I said, "Of course." Without actually thinking, anything.
mm.
I just went to see him and also see a lot of other volunteers that were able to get together that day. And then the first thing that he said to me was that you had to go back to the Nepal again. I said, "Of course, sure, yeah." And then he said, "Yeah, I want to do something. I want you to do with me." Yeah. So this year in April, I went back to teach, and this time it was a group of university students and also volunteers in Nepal affiliated with that NGO that we supported. They have a branch in Nepal. So I did a 3 days teaching. It was heaven. It was
Mm,
really like the love of my life. And also thinking about how it actually happened.
mm,
I had no idea. I had no idea. I just knew, when I was invited, I did not have to think about it. I just said, yes, I'm going. Yeah.
yeah.
And then and then he said, "What are you going to teach?" Right? I was like, "It's too late for you to ask." But then that was the moment when I felt, everything actually worked out for the best.
Yeah.
And but before you even knew it, because he wouldn't know that I was actually a trainer. He
Mm,
wouldn't have known
mm,
all the things that I did in the past 10 years, for different organizations, different groups of people, and also the fact that my first career was actually a teacher.
mm,
Um, and then I said, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to put together a curriculum. So I did my research. I talked to the people in Nepal, of different people that I can contact, and also of course the people that collaborated with us in Nepal. And I just put together a curriculum, and then I went there, with my curriculum on leadership, 3 days. And then I let them recruit who they want to come, who are the people that they want to train. I think this is also something that I learned, like before when I was actually doing training in Hong Kong. um, uh, uh, I would actually think about too many things, It was like, this is the target group, this is what I need to do, this is what they need to do.
mm,
But this time, I think it's also because, after so many years, I felt like you know what you're going to talk about,
yeah.
but you also know there's a part of it that has to come from that, right? Um, I'm very cultural sensitive, especially with the experience in Hong Kong and also talking to different groups of people, whether in schools or outside the school. Um, there's an element of like respect, and also an element of unknown. Like you cannot just take whatever that you learn from the West and then just dump it on them. You cannot do that. So when I was creating the whole experience and also the lessons, I was thinking through a lot of things that is not content,
Mm,
that is more about approach, that is also more about what I want. I want to know more about them, right?
mm,
So this is a very important change of mindset, that there's so much you can tell them, but I don't want to tell them. But I want to create this space where you have maybe some common principles, and what are the key elements that you want to arrive at, but you want them to actually contribute as much as you can contribute, and then they come up with their conclusion. So this is also something that I challenge myself for the first time to do, is a co-creation without telling them that they actually co-created with me.
That
And to me, that's beautiful.
That's so interesting also when you say the co-creation, because now in this season we spoke so much on different concepts and understandings and experiences of community and community building. And in a way, like I see, as I understand it, as you're sharing your story, there's you, Mabel, as being also part of a community where you are like a human, not labeled as anything, any of your accomplishments. And I understand also the pressure that is often felt, especially in your region, around the importance of it. And to actually take that off. And I think a lot of our listeners are also here because of that, that they want to feel human themselves and be seen as someone who brings talent and just their personality and their experiences, put it all on the table. And there's so much that everyone right now listening has to offer, right? There's so much, no matter what university you graduated from, or if you never went to university, or if you've gotten that really cool corporate gig and job that you thought was so important. It doesn't matter in the end if you put it all, in the end. You're just that human being that also wants to, I feel, belong. That's how I try to make sense of it as well in all the conversations. If I now try to, find the red thread in all these beautiful conversations over the last few months I've had, then I just sense that as someone who wants to do good, it feels even more meaningful if you get to do it in a community, co-create that impact. I love how you frame it as co-creation, even without them knowing. This is fascinating.
Until today, I don't think they knew. Of course, like when I was interacting with them, like there's a lot of chance that for a whole day workshop for 3 days, I would talk to them during breaks, like lunchtime, and and even now, I would try to talk to them, the people who wanted to, like stay in touch, on social media. But I think the essence, like you said, because to me that's also something that experimental, right? And I feel, like going back to the idea of serendipity, I think there's actually a common ground on two of the things that I want to experience. Like one is an actual training that I want to bring to them, but then within it is actually the experiment of life, that I feel up to this point in my life that I want to experience myself. There's so much about what you know, what you think you know, and there's so much about, even in a very good sense, what you want to bring to the table, like you said. But I think sometimes those things are the things that are, you know, diverting us or distracting us. Sometimes you have to trust this process. You just trust, like what you have.
Yeah.
But you have to actually open the door to see the other side of it. So it's not about what you have, because everyone knows already. But do you trust the process of this other, like whole space of what can actually happen in that space when you let go? I really like the concept of letting go. In this whole sort of experience that I had, I also want myself to learn to let go of what I thought I knew,
Hmm.
because it's all in the back of my mind anyway. Like I had a PowerPoint. The PowerPoint was actually very short, but I have tons and millions of activities and exercises in my head. And then I could just flip it, change it when I see something from that, right? So this is actually something that I think is also very interesting to try out. Like, I really appreciate you saying that, like when you have a conversation with someone, I think you absolutely, are doing it in a way that I can, like agree with that. You don't want to, nobody want to shake the conversation, because the best is actually when the conversation actually goes to where it should go. But you know what you're going to talk about. Like before we talk today, we have an idea, we have a direction. So I think pretty much the direction is actually just enough. And I'm experiencing it in my life in this past 5 years. When I started to change my direction to just doing good, whether I was in a corporate, whether I was in an NGO, whether I'm now in a family foundation, I don't want to dictate anymore, because I have one direction, because the direction is very simple. I want to do good, you know,
Hmm.
and that's all I need to know. But as for how, when, where, with whom, you will meet the people that you need to meet. And that is the part that I feel, like if you allow that kind of flexibility, just like in the course, like I know what I'm going to talk about. I have my material. I have more than I have to talk about. I could just cut anywhere. But that's not the point. I'm not going there to present the whole PowerPoint. I want to go there to get to know them. And then when I'm knowing them in the process, I found it really interesting that I just adapt, and then I change. And then in some parts, I let them lead. That is actually the beauty of the co-creation. But it's only until I know that kind of space, and I like that kind of space. It's only until then that I can actually do something that I did. Because before, I would just also, have a perfect
Hmm.
presentation. And
Perfection.
I would also have,
Hmm.
yeah, perfection. I'm actually, like, I'm drawn to that as well,
I'm
because it's
rolling
actually
my
like,
eyes because I feel it's so right. It's also a process, rolling my eyes at the perfection, because it's just such a, I think something we all ah, feel like we
addicted.
struggle with, to also
Yeah,
let go of that. Like there is a difference between being
it's a process.
prepared and being professional, or being whatever. Again, I don't want to give it any label, but to know I know what I can and I will do it the best I
Yeah.
can. But then at the same time, not trying to overperform, overdo it, and make it perfect, right?
Make it well. One, you cannot actually make it perfect, so you're
Mm.
going to disappoint yourself and other people. And the second thing is that I think the thing about why people like to be perfect is also because it's safe. It's actually a safety zone. But when you don't know what is going to happen, and then you actually allow what you don't know, that is going to happen. That is the part when sometimes like it's a challenge.
Mm.
But I don't know what happens to me in the last few years. I like that challenge. I like to know how I respond. And I also like to be very, very authentic to the situation
Mm.
right there, right now. And I think, it's also when learning actually happens. So I had a very, very good mentor in my first few years of career. After I became a teacher, I had the privilege to work in a university. So there was a few years that I worked with a very good boss, and she's my first, like university job boss. And I think I learned a lot from her, letting go, freedom, and also confidence in me. I didn't know what she saw, but she gave me the confidence that actually made the person that I am today.
Mm.
When I was still very young, when I met her, when I was in her job, working with her, I was only in my early 20s, right? And but what I wanted to say is that one, she actually shared with me this concept of real learning. So you have you standing on your 2 feet, right?
Mm.
So one foot you're standing on a very safe land, things that you know. and then the other foot, is on an unknown land. And this is actually the balance of, like you can't actually do something that you've always done and done well. And you also cannot yet go to a place where you haven't done anything before, because that would be really, really frustrating. And also it would kill your curiosity. But you have to actually stand on both lands. And that is the interesting part. That is also the 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 sort of the art of balancing and finding out and knowing, because you know something already on this side and you don't know the other side. And in this experience, when I went to Nepal to teach, I know exactly what I'm going to teach, because I've done that for so many years, like over a decade. No matter which job I was changing to, I always had a chance to teach, you tell me why. I think this is sometimes what they call destiny, like even when I was a journalist and I was being tasked to be, the person who's taking care of the cadets, and I had to teach them. And I was like, but I'm actually writing stories, So there's something that actually stays with you forever. And now I understand why. And so when I went to Nepal, I knew it's not about the content, it's about the experience, not only what you give them in the experience of um, finding out, like whether they're, like a, a, a leader that they are inspired to be, but it's also an experience for me to find out what I don't know. I don't know anything about them. And I also know very little about Nepal. It's only like last year I was there the second time. This year I went there to teach. It was my third time. And in between, I didn't read up anything. I didn't know anything Nepal. I mean, I may have met one or two people, like when I was going to events, but there's no knowledge about it. But then to me, the trusting process, I open myself, I let them open themselves. I gave them a framework when we're learning together, lots of exercises. I listened to them. Um, and this is actually when listening came in, and also so important when you are doing anything, when you are even in a lesson, when you're teaching. There's a lot of things that you can observe and listen to.
Yeah.
And that actually help you, to understand the way of thinking and the preference of learning. We are all different when we approach a subject. And as long as you keep your mind open and you want to know them, I think that's actually the key. You want to know them more, then you'll be fine. And then the experience actually was more than fine. So I had this 31 students in my class, which I didn't actually involve in any recruiting. I also trusted, like whoever is doing that, and also the staff in Nepal. And they also came to the training. I was so happy, and then everybody was enjoying that conversation and the discussion. And I was enjoying my experiment. And uh, the joy of seeing that, like they saw themselves as leaders. That was actually the key. Like if you believe yourself, if you believe that you can do it, you can already do it.
Yeah.
The rest is just practice, and also skills are all learned. But confidence is something that we have to really, like give and encourage and allow people to have the space to grow their confidence. And so I was just very happy. Yeah, of the whole thing. And to me, that was also very magical. I haven't actually felt that kind of magic feeling for a long time, to be honest. Like a lot of the things that I did, I was very grateful, like um, in the past 5 years, like all the experiences that I had actually helped me and also was special. And the people that I met was a gift in my life. But feeling magic, like that was something else. Feeling that you were just there and then you watch it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. And but I actually would be also very curious about that letting go part. I want to actually bring it up again because I I can't help but wonder if there was also then a moment where it was difficult for you to let go of maybe some of the expectations you put on yourself, or even to let go of the way you looked at maybe doing good in a different way, like as it has evolved over the years. What would you say was like a crucial turning point where you felt it was hard to let go, but you still did it?
Yeah. I love your question. Yeah. And I think one of the things that during the 3 days, like we talked about communication, which was actually my background, right? So one of the things that I was sharing with them and also having them practice was the one key element in communication. It's not about how well you craft a message. It's about empathy. Empathy is actually in everything. When you do something, if there's no empathy, uh, there will always be a hole. You lack something that's very important. Because that is the key to understanding, and that is the key to helping, serving, however you want to, you know, frame it. Um, so there's an element of empathy in communication. To actually hear what people want to say and not hear what you want them to say to you. Or when you try to present something or tell them something, you already have an agenda that I
Mm.
want to persuade you to the point that, I want you to get. So this is actually a big um, hurdle. And I feel, like it's the same thing, like to answer your question, like when I feel the turning point or the pivot to me for letting go is how much empathy do I have? Um, so when I was, like in a lot of previous positions, I was always having a team. There was always people that I took care of, or in a line of reporting, they would report to me. But one thing over the years that I learned was, like it's not good enough if you teach someone how to do their job well, because you will lose that person if you just think about that. You know, a lot of times managers would think about, like if you want to be good, I can actually make you good and successful, right? But then in the end, you might actually fail totally because your approach or what you are focusing on is nothing but just, your interpretation of success. So
Mm.
when I was in those 3 days or when I was in the whole experience, I think I already have this mind set shift.
Yeah.
um, I could not pinpoint when I actually started to think differently because I was actually in this kind of roles for quite a long time. Even before I moved to charity, like in the university, I had a team, so there's always people that I kind of, like monitor. But then somehow, I think in the last few years, I started thinking about, like you don't focus just on the tasks. You actually focus more on the people, on the person. And then bit by bit you learn. I also learn. And then you also think about that person a little bit more. Like he or she cannot finish something or doesn't understand something.
Yeah.
um you know what I mean? Like it's not the end of the world, and it's definitely not just the other person's fault. Yeah. And there's no need to find what's wrong with you, because it doesn't actually help a person grow. But then when I was with the class of students, in Nepal, there was a challenge to me, like, and that's also why I keep half of my curriculum sort of like open and also free flow, because I don't know how much they can get, right? They're of a very different kind of education system. They're totally in a different culture. their mom. They have a different language, but I can only use English to communicate with them. There's a lot of unknown, and there's a lot of also, as a trainer, you would feel, I don't know how much I can actually do. I really have to just test it, constantly, and also be flexible to change it anytime that I want to. But that element that you asked me, the one important element that could help me go through and also take them through the experience is empathy. And it will actually make you think differently. And you will also see that person in a very different light, and then you would laugh with them, like there's a role play that we were playing. And I was just standing at the back, because they were having so much fun that they cannot stop. And then usually I would say, like, it's about time, like, let's move on. But I was just standing at the back and I was like, yeah, this is actually very nice, and they were having a good time. Of course, during the exercise, as I sort of prepared for them, but at the same time, they were having fun.
Yeah, just this
But you don't have to
playfulness,
stop.
right?
Yeah,
And that's
and
where
that
where
about
learning happens, right? That's more and more.
and
I
and that is
understand that as
actually what I
well.
also wanted to see, because during that day, that lesson was creativity. They were actually being creative.
Yeah.
They were being playful. And I felt, like letting go was also, you feel how they feel. And I'm really enjoying what I see, right? And I also feel, like this is it, let them take off.
There would be so much more to say, Mabel, but I also just wanna take this as a beautiful invitation for everyone listening right now to also think for themselves, like, what can they let go of, especially in the context of the impact that they want to make in their lives, in their communities. And I feel this was like a masterclass we got from you here. Thank you for that. And I can't believe how time is just running and flying. But I know we will follow up. And I also invite everyone to find you as well. I will put some links in the show notes as well, how you can connect with Mabel to continue this conversation, because I feel we're only just getting started now. But before I let you go, I want to invite you to the quick fire round with me. Are you ready for it?
Okay.
Making an impact means
living another day, knowing what you want to do to change the world.
Who inspires you in the way they build community?
Wow, that's difficult. There's a lot of people, but right now I'm thinking about my ex-colleagues that I worked with. All of them in my life, they were an inspiration, and they are an inspiration. Especially the people that we met together when we met in Hong Kong.
Yeah, shout out. And what could everyone do right now to make the world an even better place?
I would say, like my experience, connect your own dots. Once you do that, you already take a step to influence someone. Just connect your own dot. Don't think about actually going outside first. Just connect your own dots.
Connect your own dots. I love this. I think that might just be the title of this episode. We got it. Mabel, thank you so much for doing this with me today. And I will continue listening and following your work. And it's been such a joy to also reconnect with you. And thank you for reaching out to me. So, and everyone listening right now, just reach out to me. Just send me a message. I want to hear from you. Thank you, Mabel.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for joining today. If you would like to get your voice heard on #Impact, just send a voice note at #impact.com/story. I will include the link in the show notes as well, so you can easily find it. And if you love what you're hearing here, please tell your friends about it too. I talk to you soon. Bye.